Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Nikki from Illuminated Movement Astrology, here to talk today about the upcoming energies for March of 2024. Now, 2024 is going to be a really impactful year. It's going to be a year that we look back on and say, wow, that's where so many things changed. If we do the numerology of 2024, we're talking about 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 4, which reduces down to the number 8. And 8 in astrology is associated with Scorpio and that eighth house. So lots of things regenerating, lots of things falling apart and decaying and being pulled away, lots of dissolution energy coming up in March because we have so much of the sky in Pisces, as well as still many planets in Aquarius as we begin the month. So these last two signs of the zodiac really going beyond person-centered, asking us to look at how we are in the collective, how we are sharing our gifts and our talents, what images, what thought perceptions, what parts of our personality, or maybe things that we've been doing, do we need to close out? Do we need to let go of? Because remember, we're coming up on Aries season. And Aries is the start of the zodiac in tropical Western astrology. So we have a lot of ending, a lot of change, a lot of shifts. And I wish I could say this was a quieter month, but it's not. It's a big month, just like pretty much every month in 2024. So buckle up because March will not be boring. Let's check out some key dates. So, to start off the month, we have Venus in Aquarius, square to Uranus in Taurus at 19 degrees of Taurus. And that's happening on March the 3rd. And I wanted to share the Sabian symbols for this degree because I believe they're pretty incredible. And I really think they're beacons of hope. And I wanted to share them because I feel like we all need a little bit of hope in this craziness and in this chaos, right? So, looking at the Sabian symbols here for 20 degrees Aquarius, the symbol is a large white dove bearing a message. And the keynote for this symbol is the answer of spiritual agencies to thorough, sustained, and victorious individual efforts. This concludes most significantly this series of 5 symbols. The individual who has gone courageously and with indomitable spirit through his crucial crisis receives, as it were, a deep spiritual blessing from the soul realm. Mission accomplished. Peace be with you. And in this blessing, a secret prophecy of what is yet to come may be seen by the perspicacious and spiritually sensitive mind of the recipient. Every real spiritual step a man takes in his development is the result of a victory over forces of inertia or destruction. The divine is totally present in the heart of all true victories. This is the 5th and last symbol of the 64th series. What the message is depends on the particular situation, but the white dove always signifies peace. At the very heart of this peace is the certification of individual worth and victory. Pretty amazing, right? I love that one. And so the Sabian symbol for the Taurus degree, that 20th degree of Taurus, is wisps of wing-like clouds streaming across the sky. And the keynote for this symbol is the awareness of spiritual forces at work. Any emergence of life potentialities from the depth of the vast unconscious is answered by the spiritual activity of superconscious forces in a cosmic kind of antiphony. The individual who has taken a new step in their evolution should look for the signature of divine powers confirming their progress. It may reveal the meaning of what is to come next. The wing-like clouds may also symbolize the presence of celestial beings, blessing and subtly revealing the direction to take, the direction of the wind of destiny. This is the 5th stage of the 10th fivefold sequence. It concludes a process. Having experienced which the individual should find themselves more securely established in their own original nature, receiving the blessings of supernatural forces. Pretty incredible symbols, right? I don't always work with the Sabian symbols, but in this particular case, I hope that gives many of you the message and the answers and the confirmation that you need that things are on the right path. No matter how crazy it looks out there, no matter how much chaos we may be experiencing, because there's a lot of potentiality there with where we are in our personal and our collective evolutions, that there are greater forces at work. And if you keep going and you're really doing your individual work, this month will bring up more confirmation, more symbols, more sense of peace that the path that you're on and the things that you've done are working out in your favor. Okay. So when we're talking about this square, going back to Venus and Uranus, it's a closing square. So there's an opening square, the opposition, a closing square, and then the planets would come back together in a conjunction. So we're talking about this third phase, this third angle of square, if you will. And so when we get to this third portion of the cycle, this closing square, we're talking about being faced with adjustments. Okay, these are major adjustments because we're coming to the close of an energy. So adjustments must be made between perhaps love and freedom, right? Those two things are complementary opposites. They have a lot to do with one another, but at the same time, we know that they, in a sense, are on different ends of the polarity. So what does that mean for us? We may have to look at adjustments between how our tastes have changed and how that matches our new vision of the future, our new selves, who we are after all these last few years of really being initiated and going through incredible trials and changes and up levels and evolution. What makes sense now? What do you need to do now? Not 4 years ago, but now. How we view our worth, how we view our worth in relationship to either other people or events or things in our life, and how are we sharing that value with others? Because remember, Pisces and Neptune, they ask us, in a sense, to share, to give away our gifts. Same with Taurus. Taurus starts out wanting to amass things, but as we go around the zodiac, we understand that it's much better if there are other people to share them with and that we can grow with and do more with. So anything that we want to build, right, that's of any value starts from within. It starts from us, but then we also have to include other people on our journey. So make any tweaks, make any adjustments, make anything that you need to get in order so that you can get the most out of this energy. On March the 8th, Mercury conjunct to Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees Pisces. And I want to share another Sabian symbol here. And the Sabian message is a fertile garden under the full moon reveals a variety of full-grown vegetables. Keynote: the full satisfaction of the individual's basic needs. This symbol would seem a duplication of the preceding one, but if it is related to this first of five-fold series, its meaning becomes clear. What is stressed now is not the full moon itself or its light, but the moon's power to call forth the instinctive urge for growth. Many things respond in many different ways. The symbol refers to a typical garden, not to a field. Such a garden contains a variety of plants, herbs, and vegetables grown specifically to fill an equal variety of human needs and tastes. In this sense, the third symbol of the 72nd sequence combines the meaning of the first two. It is a symbol of abundance, an abundance fitted to individualized requirements and wants. So think about that, contemplate that symbol. How does that work in your life? What garden have you planted for yourself that is full of abundance? What do you have in your resources? This also goes back to Taurus. right? We have Uranus and Jupiter currently in Taurus. What resources do you have? All of them. Gratitude for them. Bring them forward, bring them to the surface. Look a little deeper. There's probably things there that you didn't even see. You may go out to your metaphoric garden and realize that it has yielded so much more than you thought. Maybe you thought you only had one blossom or one cucumber or whatever it is, but it turns out if you lift up a few of the leaves, oh my gosh, there's a plethora of them, and you have more than enough for yourself and to share. This is a really, really important energy here when we're talking about Mercury and Pisces, right? Joining Neptune. Because the question here is, what are you tending? What are you tending in your garden? What is planted in your garden? Have you forgotten about your garden and now it's full of weeds or, pests or whatever? There can be a beautiful harmony of these incongruent planets. So Mercury and Neptune, they're definitely opposites, right? Mercury, we tend to think of logic and mind and rationale, and Neptune is the opposite of all of those things. Neptune is the mystic. It is connecting with forces that are not rational, not tangible, much more artistic, connected to the muse, if you will. And so, how can you bring these things together? How can you bring together the synergy of mind and spirit, of rational and irrational, of known and unknown? How can you pull this in? It's a great day for activities that feed your soul, that feed inspiration, intuition, creative pursuits, anything of that nature. And the challenge of this energy is getting lost in illusion or getting lost in daydreams, or even on the not so good end, falling for deception. Deception or the inability to distinguish what is real from what is fantasy, right? And that's an important energy to be able to discern. So remember, when we're looking at these planets, we want to feed them in a constructive way. So with Neptune, it may also be a day where, if you can, color in a book, play music, go outside, do something like that so that you aren't getting stuck in the less optimal parts of Neptune, which have to do with addictions. They have to do with escapism, right? Wanting to float away, wanting to disconnect, not wanting to be here. And when we get stuck in those places, that's when we attract things to us that are more unwanted. So be aware of that as that transit goes through. And the last thing I want to say about Mercury and Pisces is be careful of what you're taking in. Be careful of what you're listening to, who you're listening to, right? Pisces is very permeable. Neptune is very permeable. They're like sponges. They soak things up, right? So be very aware of what you're taking in. Super important throughout this whole month, but particularly on March the 8th. Moving on, March the 9th is a very active day in the sky because simultaneously Mercury is going to be moving into Aries. Right? And Mars in Aquarius is also forming a square to Uranus. So we had Venus that started that square, and now Mars is following suit at 19 degrees. So if you go back to those first Sabian symbols that I shared about the Venus Taurus square, they also apply here. We've got these really strong messages that the universe wants us to know that we're not alone and that things are working out. Okay, as long as we keep tapping into our spirit, we're doing things from a place of fulfilling only selfish needs, only what can I get, not what can I let be, then this energy will be way more uncomfortable and really not have the full abundance that is possible here. So when we're looking at Mercury and Aries, we may not really feel like holding back our tongues, right? Aries is bold. It acts on instinct. Speak first, think later. Okay. So just be aware of that with yourself or other people. If it feels like other people are coming at you and you're like, wow, think before you speak. Well, Mercury is in Aries. So just look around for that. It's a great time for considered honesty. If you can take a little pause, if you can, take just a moment before you blurt things out, might work a little bit more in your favor. You might come up against a little less opposition, But again, we're talking about the ram. So sometimes we need that opposition. We need to kind of run into a wall to figure out where we're going and make adjustments or to break the wall down, as it were. So just be aware of all of those energies as we're moving through this Mercury in Aries phase. And we're looking for a really beautiful time here for breakthroughs. Because remember, it's Mars Uranus, and they're in a closing square. So with Mars Uranus, we want to blaze new trails. We want to move forward at lightning speed. We want to have our energy that's just pulsating, that's just ready to bust out. We want to give it something to do. Because if you don't use this energy and it bottles up, it's like trying to keep lightning in a jar. What's going to happen to the jar? Nothing good. Right? That jar is it's gonna shatter because it can't hold all that energy. So be aware of your health, be aware of your mental health, be aware of what you're doing. Try not to go overboard with risks. If you've never jumped out of a plane and skydived before and you decide it's a great idea on this day, maybe wait, give it a couple days. Not the best time to just out of blue decide to take huge risks because you don't really know with Uranus what you're going to get there. So just be aware of that. Remember, Mars, as I said, needs to move. Okay, Uranus needs to move. So give it something to do. Channel the energy. Okay, make it constructive. If you've got no way to make it constructive, but you've just got tons of energy, or maybe you're even irritable, maybe you're even ramped up like too much, take a pillow and slam it on the ground repeatedly. Something to move energy, particularly if it's more of a frustration energy or an anger energy, something of that nature, because we all have it, right? So let's talk about it. Do something to move it. If you are in the middle of a home project, let's say, and you've got a wall that needs to be demolished, great. Great to, hammer that wall down or rip weeds out of your garden or whatever it is. Give yourself something to do so that you don't take this energy out on yourself or other people around you. All right. Then the following day, March the 10th, we have a new moon at 20 degrees of Pisces. Now, when we think of new moons, we automatically associate them with the start of something new, right? And that is true, but we also need to look at this in terms of some nuance here. When we look at the chart for this new moon, what stands out are the number of planets behind the lunation as well as in the front. They're almost equal when you look at them in terms of the number, but the planets that are ahead of this lunation, ahead of this new moon, have been there for a while, right? We've had Uranus in Taurus for a long time. Jupiter has been in Taurus for a long time. Chiron, Aries, these planets have been here, right? Even Neptune has been in Pisces for a long time. So this new moon is more about working on what has already been in motion, a nuance or an aspect or a facet of an existing storyline is asking for subtle change. Another way to think of this is, what do you already have? What do you have that can be shared, that can be of service? Be thinking about that in a new way and putting those seeds into motion. There's a gift here that you can give, that you can be of service to something greater than yourself, right? Let those seeds come to light. Set that intention and allow that to come to light as we move towards the full moon, which will actually be the solar eclipse, which again is also a closing out energy. So we're not quite in that like start from zero, new on top of new. We're talking about working on aspects of things that have already been in motion. All right. Next, we have Venus. She is flying through Aquarius and making her entrance into Pisces on March the 11th. So Venus here can denote a longing for art, for beauty, for love, for music, for anything that moves the soul and encounters that stir your compassion, that invoke the muse, right? So anything that we can do that can invoke the muse, the artistic nature of ourself, the parts of us that want to connect to spirit, connect to source, dream work, visionary work, all of those kinds of things will be really beneficial while Venus is in Pisces, because right now, in a world that feels like it's devoid of soul, right? Venus can remind us here that all is not lost. We just need to tap back into our magnetic soul devotion. Take care, whenever we're talking about Pisces, right? Take care with getting lost in bottomless romanticism or illusory pursuits of a romantic ideal. Okay, Venus here is the ultimate poet, but she can urge us into some unrequited pickles, right? Some dramatic escapes from our mundane, boring day-to-day life to our detriment. So be aware, be conscientious, use some Virgo discernment here, because we really can find ourselves in places, if we're not using this Venus energy constructively, where we are setting ourselves up in some way to be taken advantage of if we're not paying attention. So pay attention. The sun conjoins Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees on March 17th. So again, those Sabian symbols from the opening, right? At 28 degrees of Pisces is really powerful this month. So now the sun is here. And whatever we started when Mercury moved through here on the 8th gets a boost of light. It gets some extra illumination from the radiance of the sun. If we were wise in what we planted, what we are doing, how we are tending to our proverbial, our metaphoric garden here, then this will be a beautiful passage of guidance and abundance and signs from our guardian angels and from our soul and from source. If we are too out of touch with our soul or with reality, this transit is going to be a little bit more difficult because there may be very blurred lines and the desire again to float away from the doldrums of earthly life and responsibilities of any kind. So use a little bit of caution today if you feel the temptation to swim too far out to sea. It's a day where it may be very easy to get carried away. So use your opposite Virgo discernment. On the 19th of March, we have the sun moving into Aries, and now we have the official start of the zodiac, the official start of the zodiacal new year in Western astrology, in tropical astrology, which has to do with the seasons. Okay. When the sun enters Aries, this is also the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, and we are reminded that we made it through the metaphorical hibernation of winter. It's time for enthusiasm, for pioneering new pursuits, for getting back into action and going forward. That's what Aries wants. Aries is courageous. It's motivated and driven to make a fresh start, to do new things, to make an entrance, and to chalk up wins, right? Chalk up firsts. Where can you come in first? Where can you do a first in your own life? Now, some of Aries fire is still going to feel a little bit contained in 2024. Why? Well, because Chiron is still in Aries. So we're looking at Chiron in the middle degrees. So it's kind of, in a sense, at its peak. And with Chiron in Aries, in a sense, we're being asked to be a little bit more wise, a little bit more mature, a little bit more measured, if we can, a little less brash, a little less reckless. Okay, with Mercury here as well, we hopefully want to, if we can, whenever we can, think before we act. So if we understand the mentor-student metaphor here, when we're talking about Chiron, because remember, Chiron was the great teacher. When we think about it in that way, we are better positioned to get the most out of this 2024 Aries season. We're being taught something. And that's a little tough sometimes for Aries because Aries doesn't want to be taught. Aries wants to do its own thing in its own way. And that's such a beauty of Aries. But here, if we can find that moment of like slow down and allow some of the wisdom to come forward, we can use Aries in a way that we haven't for a very long time and that we're going to need when we go forward into this new earth because we're leaving behind so many of the old ways in which we did things. We need the wisdom of Chiron. We need that great teacher right now in Aries to help us self-actualize and reclaim our sovereignty. Without it, we're going to really struggle going forward. And so that's why so many people, we can see this kind of division, people reclaiming their sovereignty and people falling further and further into victim mentality. It's very seductive right now in the collective to really fall into that victimhood pattern. The I am has been hurt in some way, it's wounded in some way, and people are really, really getting caught up in that tide pool, that never ending bottomless pit of woe is me. And you can't stay there. You can go there, you can look at it, observe it, see it. We're not talking about bypassing it, but we're also not using it as this, badge of honor either. Okay, it's time to move away from those kinds of things because the seduction of the matrix, for lack of better terminology, is real right now. It is loud as all heck because it's collapsing. So don't fall for it. Okay, move on. See the things that need to be changed, face them head on. That's a very Aries thing, and keep going. Learn from them. Let Chiron heal you. Let Chiron teach you about yourself and about your sovereignty and how you can be a better steward on earth and better part of the collective in general. So there's really too much at stake here to be immature, to be impudent, to be irrational. Right? There's too much temptation to be lazy and indolent and self-absorbed, which inevitably leads to a blazing downfall, right? It will be clear this year just who understands the wise, sacred warrior path and who does not. On the 22nd of March, Mars makes his entrance into Pisces. And so, if we truly understand our duty to walk that sacred warrior path that we were just talking about with that Chiron Aries North Node conjunction, Mars's entrance here will bolster our strength and bolster our resolve. But if we don't understand the sacred warrior path, then Mars will just take us further down on a path of destruction and delusion. So Mars in Pisces can have a really keen intuitive accuracy, a company of angels, so to speak, on his side, and the foresight to know when to fight and when to yield. He can be peaceful here, though careful measure and devotion to a higher principle must be at the forefront. On the lower end of the spectrum, Mars can turn into a perpetual victim, drawing aggression towards him just to prove how slighted and stabbed in the back he is. Right? Or Mars can turn us to chaos and deception and con artistry, being the one doing the stabbing, all the while proclaiming that we're not. So use Mars and Pisces wisely here. Walk that sacred warrior path. Let him help you instead of work against you. Let that energy flow through you in a positive way instead of becoming your own worst enemy. On the 25th, here we go, the opening of eclipse season. So we have this full moon lunar eclipse at 5 degrees of Libra. Now, this is a big topic, which I'll do separate videos on, but what I want to say on this one is this lunar eclipse, as I talked about in the beginning, this is a carryover energy. This is like a really powerful full moon, like a big one. Okay. And so this is where things are more clearly seen, where they're more clearly illuminated, right? We can observe under the full moon more clearly the effects of what we planted, what was in an earlier beginning or earlier choices that we made. And this eclipse season will no doubt be memorable for years to come, particularly in the United States, because it's part of a larger cycle of eclipses that has been happening since 2017. Okay. Which I'll talk about in more detail in another video. But the rulers of the lunar nodes, remember right now the North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. So we have the North Node being ruled by Mars, the South Node being ruled by Venus, and both of those planets are seated in Pisces. Venus ruling this moon as well, ruling over Uranus, ruling over Jupiter. So she's got a lot to say here. But we can't just stop at Venus. We have to look at who Venus is answering to. And because she's in Pisces, she's answering ultimately to Neptune. And anytime we're talking about Neptune, we're talking about things that are a little mystical, they're a little more illusory, they're a little less easy to grasp. Okay, there's a lot here that may be revealed to us. When we're talking about Neptune and Pisces, Neptune has moved to 27 degrees. And whenever a planet, but particularly an outer planet, has moved to the final degrees, which would be 27, 28, and 29, because remember the planets start over at 0. Anytime a planet goes to this end, the volume gets turned up. Okay, the dial gets turned up on the particular planet. And so when we're talking about Neptune, there's a lot of dissolution, okay, dissolving energy here. There's a lot that we're being asked to let go of as well. And all of this is in line with the cosmic themes we're experiencing, right? This is simultaneous ending energy and beginning energy, particularly with Pluto moving over into Aquarius, right? That's a change. That's a beginning of something. So many truths coming to the surface as the curtain is pulled back. And we really can start to see the wizard for who he is, right? Of course, when it comes to Neptune, there's also the possibility of sinking further into illusions, delusions of grandeur, and addictions of all kinds. So be aware of that, because we are really living in a time where, again, it's imperative that we reclaim our sovereignty, where we question what is happening. When we get back in touch with ourselves and our higher selves, we will be positioned better for the new earth. It's the end of the age of Pisces and the beginning of the age of Aquarius that we are experiencing. And the overlap of these energies is where we currently are positioned in time right now. Remember, astrology is like having a light that's on a dimmer switch, or if you've ever been in a theater and you know when you're turning certain lights up and down, maybe you're turning the blue lights up and the red lights down, right? We're not necessarily just doing a 0 count pop. It's not a light switch off on, okay? It's a dimmer switch. It's a fade up and a fade down. Or you could think of it like sunrise and sunset, how there's this little period in between day and night. That's where we are right now in terms of the precession of the equinoxes. And when we're talking about the precession of the equinoxes, that's a 2000 plus year cycle. Okay. So when it's that long, we have this overlap right now where things are, again, they're leveling out, they're fading in and out. It's like that twilight time where it's not quite daytime or it's not quite nighttime. That's where we are. So with all of that, understanding that we're moving from a time of feeling so separated, right? Pisces, the two fish on a string swimming in opposite directions. That separation that we've been experiencing for so long between spirit, between source and ourselves, that is coming to an end. And we're moving more towards getting back in touch with humanity and being interconnected. Okay, the opposite of that will be total disconnection, right? Merging with AI and becoming, in a sense, like human hybrids. Your choice. You go where you want to go. I know where I want to go. I'm not going down that hybrid dystopian nightmare road, but some people will. So we really are being asked to pay attention. Okay. We have to pay attention right now. And why I bring all this up is because the eclipse itself is happening in conjunction with Chiron in Aries. Okay. Healing parts of our self-identity, our sovereignty, the I am energy of that first sign of the zodiac. And this is complicated because there's so much here. There's so much to who we are as humans. There's so many stories of who we are and where we've come from and who we're supposed to be, right? All of those things are coming up right now for changes. And it's part of why, for some, there's been pain associated with things like loss of purpose, loss of sense of direction, um, even just the pain of being incarnated right now, because we're also looking at, our hopes and our dreams and the things that we wanted to actualize, or the way we thought life was supposed to be, in a sense, is gone. We have to let go of it. And this may be really exciting. There may be aspects of this. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to, drop the mask and drop all these things that I actually hated and I didn't want to be a part of and that don't feel like me. That's an exciting part. The other part is, the grief of it and the fear of, well, now what? Because there's maybe this void position where the new hasn't quite showed up yet. And so you're just sitting there with like, well, what do I do? And so there can be grief there. Okay. Maybe it's a mix of both. For a lot of people, it's a mix of both. And there is no right or wrong response to this. There's just how you're going to be moving through this energy. But whatever it is, there's something here that's asking us all to get out of our own way so that we can be who we really came to be here on Earth in this lifetime, in this incarnation right now. And for the Pluto in Libra generation in particular, these eclipses have been really powerful. They've been closing out some chapters. They've been opening some new energy, unlocking some things because we're talking about Pluto, right? And specifically, the souls that were born between December of 1980 and July of 1981, approximately that 6-month period, which I know is a very small amount of souls, but I know you're there because you tell me you're there. And hi to all of you. I'm one of those as well. We're getting an even bigger kind of upgrade and ask here because these eclipses are also sitting on our Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Libra. So I've talked about this quite a bit in the videos, Pluto and Aquarius Part 1 and Pluto and Aquarius Part 2, why this is so important. But when we're looking at these eclipses happening on or near our natal Pluto placement, but also for that 6-month period, those souls between December 1980 and July 1981, also sitting on that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Libra, we have that South Node, again, coming over these planets, unlocking some of this energy in a way that it's never been done before. Okay. Particularly because we're firmly placed now in this 200-year Jupiter-Saturn cycle of moving through the element of air. Previously, we didn't have that. We were still in the time of Earth, but now we're in the time of air. And so we're really able to unlock this energy in a way that we never could before. Because for a lot of these souls, this Jupiter-Saturn felt strange or maybe like a burden. And that's partly because these souls were encoded differently. They came in a sense ahead of their time. And so there's this feeling of being out of place with their peers, with the way society was operating, within maybe their family, or just even being on Earth. Okay, there's something there that for many felt like they were out of place, almost in a sense like that Aquarian or Uranian feeling of feeling not part of, not connected in some way. And so now with this South Node and these eclipses coming through, it's really, really asking all of us who felt like such outsiders to step up to the plate. Like, this is it. this is the time. It's like, we're being booted up and being asked to come online in a new way. This version, whatever point oh we're on of ourselves, is like an evolutionary leap. If we're ready to take it, if we allow that to happen, we can really like burst forward in ways where, again, that Jupiter Saturn doesn't feel like such a burden like it used to. Okay, it's going to be more in line with where we're going. And these are the souls that are visionaries and have things that we need right now. And I'll probably end up doing bigger videos on this as well, because I know it's a specific topic, but I wanted to at least put that out there for those souls to know that there's a lot of things coming. You can probably already feel it, right? You're probably already living it. But for those of you who were wondering, yes, you're getting major, major, major energetic upgrades right now and major, major, major impulses to take that evolutionary leap forward. So, talking about the eclipses in general, back to them in general, they can provide all of us with a leap forward in some way, but it will be felt more particularly if you have natal planets or angles that are in contact with this eclipse energy. So it may not be immediately apparent. Remember, there's time on this planet, on planet Earth. There's that gravity that we have to deal with for things to fully reveal themselves. So even though it may not happen on the specific day, this will be something that when you look back, oh, that's the jumping off point. That's where these things really changed for me, or I was able to let go of a story, or I was really able to move forward in some way. So you're going to want to look at your Aries and Libra houses, as well as any planets you have there or angles. Remember, the angles are your ascendant, your descendant, your midheaven, right? Your MC, medium celli, and your IC, the imum celli, down at the bottom. So look for those things to see where this energy has been showing up. And then remember, we had these eclipses in 2023 as well, right? So we're in a sense closing out, starting to close out some of this energy that began last year. So we're looking at, again, that Aries Libra. There may also be some energy that feels relevant to those who have planets or angles that would be square. So that would be the signs of Cancer, Capricorn. And you may use wider orbs. I like them a little bit tighter. So I look between, for this particular one, between 0 and 10 degrees of the cardinal signs, which to remind you are Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. Sorry, I did that out of order, but there you go. So when the nodes of the moon are conjunct, square, or opposing planets or angles that we've got, it's like we're being asked to look here, right? It's like the cosmos are saying, here, focus, look here. This is something to pay attention to. It may bring up stories from the past, things from the past, events from the past in some way, so that we have the opportunity to do things better. Okay, we have the opportunity to make major adjustments and hopefully close out some stories that may have been going on for a long time, whether it's this lifetime or you believe in other lifetimes, stories that have been happening for a long time. So if we are open to allowing the changes that our higher selves are guiding us towards, we will get a lot more out of this eclipse in general. So looking at March, whoo, what a month. It's going to be power packed. Again, there's really no months in 2024 that are kind of quiet, if you will. They're all kind of loud. There's a lot changing. There's a lot happening. So remember to take care of yourself. Remember to take good care of your health and your body and your mind and your spirit and all of the things that make you you. I hope this was helpful. Enjoy the month of March. Until next time, take care.